Roxy Ndebumadu never thought she'd venture into politics. The daughter of Nigerian immigrants, Ndebumadu entered the world of tech after graduating from Howard University. But as happy as she was to be in big tech, Ndebumadu told the Switch Up at her live event in March, she was struck by just how little representation there was in the industry.
Even being in big tech, less than 3% were Black women in big tech. And I looked around and I said, wow, we have so much power. We're designing all these products that people are using, but there's less than 3% Black women in the room making the products. That's a problem for me.
Not long after, as Ndebumadu was having a conversation with a mentor, a seed was planted.
So one day I was sitting in a room, and I will always, always give this man the highest honor because he changed the trajectory of my career, Fred Humphreys. He said, you should maybe run for office. And I was like, Fred, have you met me? Like, what is going on here? No, I should not. He said, Roxy, you should run for office. And I said, I respected Fred, very prominent government affairs professional, knows a lot of people, seen a lot. So I said, maybe I should. So I looked into running for elected office. It was about 45 days before the city council election. I said, you know what, why not? If I don't tell my story, who's gonna tell it? If I don't represent my people, who's gonna represent my people? And I ran for office. I wasn't very active in politics. I wasn't very active in a party. I just knew that I grew up in a community. I was passionate about that community. I saw what happened to my community when certain people got into power. Felt like the community was going in a different direction. And I said, if not me, then who? And so I ran, and then I won.
Still in office today, Ndebumadu is among a new generation of Black women hoping to bring change and diversity to the GOP. I'm Cheyenne Daniels, race and politics reporter for The Hill, and this is The Switch Up. Today, we're taking a look at what it means to be a Black Republican woman, from where their priorities lie to the barriers they face in a field that's largely been dominated by white men. In 1968, Shirley Chisholm became the first Black woman elected to Congress. There, she introduced more than 50 pieces of legislation, advocated for racial and gender equality, and the plight of the poor. In 1971, she became a co-founder of the National Women's Political Caucus. In 1972, Chisholm decided to seek the presidency, but she was discriminated against at nearly every turn. She was blocked from participating in televised primary debates, and she was forced to run an under-financed campaign. And despite being a founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus, tensions brewed between Chisholm and the predominantly male group. Still, there's no doubt Chisholm paved the way for those serving today. From Vice President Kamala Harris to Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, to California Senator LaFonza Butler, who replaced the late Senator Dianne Feinstein, the last 5 years have seen Black women making history in politics. And Chisholm's legacy can be seen most clearly in the 29 Black women currently serving in Congress. For Maryland GOP hopeful Kimberly Klacik, these gains shouldn't be too surprising.
Many women, we are the leaders in our own household, right? To me, it seems like a no-brainer that we would be part of the political arena as well. Now, it's still a male-dominated world, but I think now you've got more women at the table talking about these issues that are much more important to women, right?
But despite some success stories, Black women remain underrepresented at every level of government. There's never been a Black female governor of any state, and only 8% of all mayors in the 100 most populous cities are Black women. And most Black women in office are Democrats. Black women are often seen as unicorns in the Republican Party. Because we don't see many of them, the idea that they exist is often portrayed as astonishing. But for Ndebumadu, much of what the Republican Party espouses aligns with the values she grew up with.
When I reflect on the way that I grew up as a Black woman, as a first-generation American and daughter of Nigerian immigrant parents, I have to reflect and remember what values were important to us and the values that I was raised with and that were instilled with us at the time of youth, which were family values, which were that you can't depend on the government for everything, which were that education is key and priority, which were it doesn't matter your circumstances, you need to figure out a way to thrive. And that's how I grew up. That's what was instilled in me. Unfortunately, in that era, and especially if you think of a country like Nigeria, a lot of the things that we talk about, a lot of the social aspects of politics that we think about today were not at all accepted. And even arguably today, many of those are still not accepted. And so I think when you think about fundamentally the values that are important to me, that were instilled in me from childhood, from the way that I grew up, they always almost aligned with the Republican Party from its inception. I'm not saying the Republican Party today, because it looks a little different. It looks a little different from its inception. So we're not talking about that part. But really, what we're talking about is the inception and the premise and the values that the Republican Party was founded on. They are synonymous with the values that I was raised with and that I hold near and dear to my heart.
But the GOP has struggled for some time with female voters, especially in the wake of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which ended the federal right to abortion access. The party has also come under fire over the last year for what some have called anti-Black rhetoric and policy. Last summer, Arizona Republican Representative Eli Crane referred to Black people as colored people in floor debate. Before that, Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville denounced the idea that white nationalists are inherently racist, though he later walked back his comments. And more recently, Republicans have tried to limit Black history in schools and placed restrictions on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs across the nation. These issues, Democrats argue, go all the way up to the head of the Republican Party. In February, former President Trump, who's gearing up for a rematch against President Biden in November, faced heavy criticism from Black leaders for saying that his legal woes have earned him the support of Black voters around the country, claiming that Black Americans embraced his mugshot and that he knows Black people because they built his buildings. For some, these are simply issues of messaging. For others, it's indicative of just why the party continues to struggle to maintain the support of Black voters.
You can't say that we are a party that is for you if you're not willing to walk the walk. So, unfortunately, until the broader party is willing to walk the walk, it doesn't matter what they say. The messaging will never matter because at the end of the day, what I have learned as an elected official, a two-term elected official at this point, is that people resonate with what they can feel. People resonate with what they can see, how it directly affects their life in that moment. And if they cannot feel it, it does not exist. So it doesn't matter what you say.
Republicans also haven't had a Black female Republican serve in Congress since former Representative Mia Love, the first and only Black woman Republican to do so. Love represented Utah from 2015 to 2019. Out of the 136 Republican women nominees who ran for elected office in 2022, only 10 were Black women, according to a report by Represent Women, an organization dedicated to breaking down structural barriers to women's political leadership. Still, Black Republican women have seen occasional victories in the political arena elsewhere. In 2021, Winsome Sears was elected Virginia's lieutenant governor, making her the Commonwealth's first woman to hold that position, as well as the first Black woman to hold statewide elected office in the Old Dominion state.
In order to have more women, specifically Black women, run for office in the Republican Party, we need to set mechanisms in place to make sure that they are protected once they get there, that they can do the thing. I have been elected for going on 5 years now. I have been the target of almost every attack of my city council, every single one. But do you think there's a party sustaining me that's pouring into me? Quite frankly, no.
And it's not always a lack of support that Black Republican women must face. It's also sexism.
So there's a lot of barriers. Oftentimes, I will get, even talking to people within my own party, if I'm trying to persuade them for my vote, or for their vote, I should say, some people will say, well, I think more women would vote emotionally, right? And so what can you do to make sure that you can, convince us so you're not going to vote based on your emotions? And so it's like, all right, I understand where you're coming from, but not all women are emotionally driven. And many of us can separate work from our emotions, just like men can. And I say even further, I've seen many men vote on based on their emotions, right? So yeah, we'll have that conversation often.
These issues aren't uniquely Republican, though. Chisholm, a Democrat, argued that Black women are given fewer opportunities to run for office because they're viewed as non traditional candidates. In the end, Chisholm said, anti Black, anti female, and all forms of discrimination are equivalent to the same thing: anti humanism. Both Republicans and Democrats struggled to recruit Black women candidates, though Democrats' recruitment tactics have been more successful than Republicans when it comes to the demographic. Party leaders still have a habit of continuing to support white candidates over Black women. In Maryland's 2015 Senate race, for instance, Democratic Party leaders endorsed Representative Chris Van Hollen over Representative Donna Edwards, even though they had almost identical voting records and support from progressive groups. Edwards would later draw attention to leaders labeling her opponent as someone who was born to do the job and a strong white man. And Black women are often forced to rely more on small dollar donations rather than heavy investment from their parties. And politics, if nothing else, is a money game. Perhaps that's why Republicans may have a chance to begin to pull Black women to their side. Democrats have been losing Black Americans' support for some time. According to a recent Gallup survey, Democrats' lead over Republicans and Black Americans' party preferences has dropped by almost 20 points over the last 3 years. A survey from the Washington Post and Ipsos last month found that 14% of registered Black voters said come November, they will definitely, or probably, vote for Trump over Biden. This would be a significant increase in support for the former president, who has steadily gained Black voter support since 2016, when he earned just 8% of Black voters' ballots. Meanwhile, polls show Black women growing increasingly concerned with the direction the country is heading, with the cost of living, public safety, and racism and discrimination as some of their top issues ahead of November's election. Still, Black Americans remain suspicious of the Republican Party and its candidates, feeling it's one that is not welcoming and, in some cases, harmful to their community.
I think some people sometimes they look at what they see most in media or on television, and they say, "Oh, well, this is Republicans are going to go with this because this is what they're talking about." Right now, there's a big conversation about Republicans wanting to end Social Security. I would never want to end Social Security, and I do believe that there should be some kind of reform in government assisted programs, but I would never end government assisted programs because I know so many people rely on them, and of course, not just Black people. And so I think some people, they believe certain things possibly because of the media or what they've been told. But I just want people to know, I would never turn my back on the Black community. The reason I ran is because of all the things that I've been seeing going on in the Black community. And I just know that we can do better. We have the potential to really thrive. We just have to get more people in the fold, like I said, that can come up with those innovative ideas to get our areas, our predominantly Black neighborhoods, to the top, just like so many neighborhoods around us.
And that's the key. Just like Black Democratic women, Black Republican women say they have really one goal: to help their community and provide them a seat at the decision-making table. And really, says Ndebumadu, until the title of first Black woman can be removed from our lexicon, Black women will continue to show up across party lines to help their communities.
I didn't come from a lineage of political people. I didn't come from that. I didn't know that it was possible for someone like me to be elected in its most authentic form, because I'm not going to abandon my authenticity for nobody. But it took an older Black male and an older Black woman to tell me, I see that within you. You need to run, for me to do it. I never thought about it. That was never my life story. I was never dreaming about being elected. I never was like, I'm going to be president of the United States. That was not my story. My story was, I'm going to make money. I'm going to make money to change the circumstances of my family. I mean, yes, we're professionals. Yes, they're Nigerian, and yes, they're doing great things. But have they amassed the level of wealth that I have at 31 years old? The answer is no. So yes, it's important for young people, specifically in marginalized communities, to see examples such as the first of whatever that is, for them to understand that somebody is blazing a trail that they will be able to follow and that their parents' work is not in vain. So to everybody who always asks, I will never stop saying the first. I will never stop celebrating the accomplishments, because to other populations, to other communities and other demographic, it matters. And it is going to be that one example that shows that young girl, like we said at the panel, when the woman walked up to me and said, I didn't know you could be Republican and be a Black woman and be for the people. It shows them that it's possible. So I will never stop that.
I'm Cheyenne Daniels, race and politics reporter for The Hill. And from all of us at The Hill, thanks for listening to this episode of The Switch Up. More episodes of The Switch Up Season 2 are coming soon, so be sure to follow The Hill on all social media platforms at THEHILL. The Switch Up was created and written by me. Script editing by Steph Thomas. Our booking producers are Casey Brady and Tia Shepard.